Okay, today we're going to talk about a competition gun and try to talk about some marketing that Springfield Armory did, and I'm thankful for this marketing that they did. Years ago, they decided they saw a lot of people using the 1911 in competition, NRA competition shoots, and all kinds of different competitions. Bullseye competitions, sometimes just friendly neighborhood or shooting clubs. And a lot of people have learned that this 1911 is an excellent gun for target shooting because of its super good trigger that you can build. It has a very crisp trigger. You can drop the poundage down to 4 or 3.5 or even down to 2.5 if you're so inclined. Very easy to set up a good target trigger. Then you put a good barrel in it, and next thing you know, you've got a very nice target gun. So what Springfield did was they wanted to have a target pistol that would appeal to the masses and have it where a young person could buy a gun and go out and get into target shooting and not break the bank. So their goal was to kind of stay below the $1,000 bracket, which is hard to do with competition guns. And so they built this gun, and they wanted it basically to be able to take it out of the package, right out of the box from the factory, lube it up, get some good quality ammo, and take it for range day, go out and start competing right away. So huge advantage to that, because most people, when they buy a gun, the first thing that they realize is it needs to be souped up. It needs a better this, a better that, maybe a better barrel, maybe a tighter fit, tighter barrel bushing, all these things, and they take it to a gunsmith, and so it spends a lot of time in the shop. They have to buy a lot of parts, and that's a rough way to go for a new shooter, a brand new shooter. They can get into some pretty discouraging situations in a hurry. So Springfield is real sharp on this stuff, so they came out with this gun called the Range Officer. Now, you may be able to zoom in on your end. If you've got a phone, you can pinch it and zoom in, but right here, this is a factory grip that says Range Officer. Now, I want to talk about this gun you see in front of you today. We're going to talk about what it takes to be a competition gun. I'm going to give you some pluses and minuses, a little bit of sad news, and then some glad news to make up for it. So, the first thing that you need to have if you're going to have a good quality target gun is you need a forged frame. So you start with the foundation. This is the foundation of your target pistol right here. And boy, I'm telling you, Springfield Armory knows how to build a forged frame. I know for a while they were building these or having them built in Brazil, and I think they're doing these all in-house. But this is not cast. It is a solid forged frame. Forging is a hammering process and a heating process, and it makes the crystalline structure of the metal get more and more compact, and it helps with the alignment of it. It just makes it a very strong thing. This is stainless steel. It's hammer forged stainless steel. So that's your first step to have a competition pistol. That comes with the Range Officer. The next step, and I'm going to go ahead and move some stuff around here a little bit. The next thing that you want to make sure that you have is a solid forged slide. So we've got a good solid forged slide right here on the Range Officer. You also want the fit of these two to be very tight. It doesn't have to be so tight that it won't move, but relatively speaking, it needs to be where the gun doesn't rattle. It can't be like a GI gun. The old John Moses Browning gun, you could pick them up and just rattle them, but they would go bang every time. That was more for reliability, and I think their standard was about 4 or 5 inches at 25 yards, and most of them could do that. But in this case, we've got a good solid, this is a forged heavy slide, and it is built out of stainless steel, a piece of forged stainless steel, been through the hammer, been through the fire, got very good structure. It has a tight fit between it and the lower frame. So that's a second item that you need. The third item you need is a cold hammer forged barrel. Again, this is stainless steel. It does not have to be stainless, but it needs to be cold hammer forged match grade barrel, and that's what we have right here. This is doesn't say match on it, but it is in their brochure. It's a Springfield Armory 45 auto, and match grade means that they have cut these notches where they fit up into the slide. They've made a close tolerance on those. The barrel inside is a tight tolerance. You've got, this is polished slightly, but it's match grade. Everything about this is match grade. So that's your third item. And then the next item on the list that you need is the barrel bushing itself needs to be of a tight fit. Now, a lot of people, they buy just a plain Jane gun. That's one of the first things they'll do is get online, get with Ed Brown or Wilson Combat or EGW, and they'll get them a new barrel bushing. So that needs to fit, and you can see that is a very tight tolerance. There's almost no movement at all on that. You don't want it so tight that it impedes your reliability, but that's tight. I mean, you can feel that like it's trying to screw on there, and I've got all the lube off of it right now. So that's another thing that you need on a target gun. Now, for me, this is a personal preference, but I think that I can prove this. If you go to a range around target shooters, they are going to take the heavy-duty spring out of these. They're not going to run an 18.5 or a 19 or a 20. They're going to drop this spring down, and that's what I've done in this case. I'm going to move this over just a little bit so you'll have some contrast so you can see this spring against something white, paper towel. This spring, if you'll notice carefully, the rungs on this spring are closer together here, and then they're spread out a little more, and then really spread out, and then really spread out. So that's a variable rate spring. Farther apart here, medium here, and really close together here. So that is a 14-pound progressive rate. This is from Wolf Company, and I put that in there so I can rack the slide real easy, and I can shoot light loads. That's another thing that you need. If you're going to be shooting a gun in competition, you need some bullets that are light loads. They do not have to be mil spec. So what you see here are some berry bullets, the standard 230 grain round nose bullet, and I've got 4 grains of bullseye powder underneath those. These are going to come out of the barrel at about 750 feet per second. I believe that'll make major if you're so inclined, but having that nice round nose means I'm not going to have any problem with reliability. When you're shooting competition, every shot counts, and they're going to start deducting points off if you start having problems with your gun, getting hung up, and you pull the trigger and nothing goes bang, or if the gun starts jamming, you will quickly lose your competition. So you need good quality ammo, light loads, and a light spring. You can match these two together. Some people see a 14-pound variable rate spring and they go, oh, that's way too light for a 1911. We're talking about a gun that's going to be used in a target situation. In my wife's gun, her carry gun, she likes a light spring because she doesn't shoot heavy loads. So your spring and the power of your round, those two need to go together. A quick way to tell if you've got that set up right is look at your ejection path. If when you're shooting the gun, it ejects the brass and puts it over in the neighbor's yard, your spring is too light or your load is too hot. On the other end of the spectrum, if you fire the gun and your brass just barely dribbles out the side of the gun, either your spring is too heavy or your load is too light. And if you get too light, too heavy of a spring, you're going to get a jam, because what'll happen is the gun will cycle and it'll shoot, it'll kick it to the rear, and it won't quite make the slide go rearward enough to pick up the next round. So anytime you see one that's not reloading itself, it usually means your load is too light or your spring is too heavy. These two are working in concert with each other. So get a light spring, this is 14, a variable rate spring from Wolf Corporation. Another thing, when you buy one of these springs, this is just a tip for you. Sometimes this will want to come off one way and not the other, so I always turn it and feel for it. But these springs, when you buy these from the factory, brand new spring, it will have one end that's finished. meaning it's wrapped up tight, there's nothing to hang up. And on the other end, it will have a raw end. You can see that there. In other words, it's just been clipped off by the machine, leaves a raw end on there. It's very important when you're putting your gun together to use this spring guide and go ahead and put that finish end on that. That way when you put the gun together, you'll have this nice little plunger cap on the end, and that will cover that raw end right there, so you don't have any problem with the gun getting hung up. So that covers that. What else have we got? We want to have a competition gun. The next thing that you'll need is you'll need to make sure that you've got some good quality sights. Now these are made by Springfield Armory, and I'm going to turn these both ways so you can see them. This is got their logo on it. It's a Bomar style sight. It's spring loaded, meaning you can turn a screw on the top of it and set that sight lower or higher. It has a nice large screw on the side so you can drift it to the right and to the left. You need to be able to get that sight very precise. This one happens to use a fiber optic front. I'll line it up that way so you can see it. It has a very narrow cut notch in the rear. The old saying about aim small, miss small, there's a lot to be said for that. You're not in a combat situation here. You're doing very fine target work. So you want this notch to be thin. You want that optic dot in the front to be small. I take the orange or red one out first thing and put me a grasshopper green, so that takes care of that. So what else do you want on a competition gun, one you're going to use for target work? I want a magazine that is a good quality magazine that's not going to get me hung up. And that's where the Wilson Combat Mag comes in. This is a Wilson. This is their old 47D. It's got the slots right here. You can read well to see how many rounds you've got. That last dot right there is round number 8. They make this in a 7 round and in an 8 round. I prefer the 8 because I load it to the max, put it in the gun, cycle the slide, and I get rid of that 8th. So I always got a little spring, extra spring there to do the job. These come with a heavy duty, extra heavy duty spring in them to make sure they load reliably. It also has a special plastic follower. It's dished out to feed the round. It's got some fiber, carbon fiber or something blended in with the plastic, so very durable. But that slides and glides up and down in the gun. I have seen people that had reliability issues with the 1911 pistol because of the feed ramp geometry was off, or maybe the barrel was off a little bit. And I have watched people buy this 47D and start shooting with it in their competition gun, and it solved their problem. So that 47D's got a very good reputation for being a problem solver. It really assists and helps with that gun doing a good job. The next thing that I do if I was going to do a competition shoot is I don't trust the factory 100% on the extractor, so I will take one live round and I will carefully run that down the breech face and let the extractor claw hook it. I get between the breech face and the extractor claw, and I make sure it goes all the way up where it would be centered up with the primer and the firing pin. You don't have to worry about it getting struck here because there's no hammer back here. But once you get that put in there, I'll bobble it around a little bit with my hands and get it where it's laying flat with the back of the shell against the breech face. Everything's good and flat and square. And then I do this. I roll it around like that. I may even give it a little shake. And that extractor claw, if it's tuned properly, it should be able to hold that live round without any problem at all. And that ensures that your 1911 will run reliably. Now, that means it's not too loose. If it is too tight, the way that you tell that is when you get ready to slide that live round in between there, you'll start to push it in there and it will be so tight that you can't even hardly get it to go in there. So that's another test. Just run it in there, feel for it. It's kind of a feel thing, and slide it in there real carefully and feel and see how tight it is. Sometimes I'll stick my finger in there and bobble it back and forth a little bit and kind of feel the extractor claw and see how much tension it's got on it. It's a tricky thing, hard to show on camera, but you literally can push one way and then push the other, and you can activate that extractor claw. It's a piece of spring steel. And then again, I will do it one last time. I'll put it where the whole shell is sitting with its butt live round. Its case is sitting with its butt flat on that back wall there. That's your breech face. And once I get it like that, then I'll roll it. If you see it rock a little bit, that's fine. That's no problem. But if it falls loose, you need to take that extractor out and tune it. There's plenty of videos that show how to do that. You get with Mr. Wilson Combat on that. He is by far the expert. Say, what else do you need? Well, sometimes people do like to go through that pin and make sure it's a little bit tight. They get an oversize and polish that a little bit and make sure it fits tight to give the gun tight lockup. This gun was designed for competition, so that's something you don't have to worry about. Now, here's the sad news. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I've got bad news and I've got good news. The bad news is they don't make this gun anymore. This gun you see right here, RO, Range Officer Target. They made this in stainless. They made it in a Parkerized, and they were all 5-inch. You do want your gun to be 5-inch. They do not make this gun anymore. Say, oh no, now what am I going to do? Well, here's the deal with Springfield Armory. They are kind of famous. You see this in the food industry. Everybody does this. It's a real businessman. They just don't run something too long and just keep it going exactly the same too long. It just gets, something about it gets stale. So they will change the name to protect the innocent. They'll let the range officers shine for a while. They'll let everybody wish they had one. They'll let them get sold off into the pawn shops and gun stores, and people will be looking for it like crazy. And then they start longing for something. They say, man, I want a gun like that. I want one just like that. So here's the good news for you. They have a gun that they kept below $1,000, and it has this. It has a lower frame that is a nice, solid forged lower frame. They have one that has a forged upper slide like this, a hammer forged cold barrel, a tight tolerance barrel bushing. You put the springs you want in there, but it has this same military style short spring guide rod. They've got all that, and the name of it is the Garrison. The Garrison. Now the good news is on the Garrison, even better news, is they have made it so that it can be a competition gun. It has all the stuff this one has, except for one thing. It does not have these target sights. So don't let that blow you out of the water. You can find a Garrison for in between $750 to $850 price range. $800 should be your target that you're shooting at. You want it to be around $800 for a Garrison. They make that Garrison. I love it because it has no forward cocking serrations, just like this bad boy right here, just like the range officer. It has no equipment rail. It's more traditional looking like this. It has the stubby. They didn't go with the crazy full-length guide rod, which does a whole lot of nothing. It doesn't do anything. So I don't believe that. Well, that's okay. I know a professional shooter that outshoot anybody. His name's Jerry Michalek. Just go on the website and go on the internet, YouTube, and see what Mr. Jerry Michalek's, see what his opinion is on a full-length guide rod. He'll tell you quick. It's just not needed. It's a waste of money and time and energy, so don't bother with it. So, what can you get? You can get a Garrison, and a Garrison comes in 8 different formats. You can get a Garrison in stainless, just like this. Add your target sights, because it's going to come with 3-dot Novak style combat sights. So buy you a stainless steel one. It'll be just like this, except it'll have the word Garrison printed. Real classy, sexy looking letters here on the side. And a Garrison is a group of men that have set up a fort somewhere out in the woods. It could be a fort in the military, or it could be a bunch of patriots set it up. It just means a group of men that's guarding something. That's what a Garrison is. So cool name for the gun. You can get it in full size like this in a stainless steel. If you wanted to have one that's kind of target, but also want to make it into a carry gun and try to do both a little bit, you can buy it in a 4 1/4. And man, that thing is nice. It is built just like the old Colt Commander. It is a 4 1/4. So they've cut off 3/4 inch on the slide, 3/4 inch on the barrel and the frame. And so it's a little bit shorter. They leave all this grip exactly the same. So it drops a little weight off, makes it a little easier to tuck away if you want to have concealed carry. They also make this in a full size or the 4 1/4 in a 9mm. So that's another thing. Say, what other choices do you have? You can get it like this in a full size in a beautiful hot salt blued finish, all blued all over. And that's beautiful. You can get that in 45 or 9mm. You can also get the hot salt blued chopped off down to a Commander size in a 45 or a 9mm. So you've got 8 different choices with the Garrison. The Garrison is an excellent replacement for this. And I'm not getting the Garrison because I've already got my range officer. And you can, like I say, look around in some pawn shops. If you do get one, make sure you get one that hadn't been screwed with, modified, you know, hadn't been bubbaized down in the basement somewhere with a Dremel in the middle of the night and a bunch of, I'm going to be a gunsmith guy. You don't want that. Don't buy those kind of guns. They'll give you more trouble than they're worth, especially if they've been in here and they've been cutting this out, trying to say, boy, I'm gonna polish that, and they get in there and start grinding with a Dremel, and they change that angle right there a degree or two, that gun will not run. So be very careful if you buy a used gun. Look for any kind of cut marks that have been made or any parts that don't look like they go together. Be very careful of that. Say, what else can you tell me about having a competition gun? Don't forget your bullets. It is good to buy yourself. I own a Lee turret press, and I build these. I buy my own brass. I buy my own bullets. These bullets, like I said, are the Berry. They're copper coated lead bullets. They have a little bit different nose on them, so I have to run these at 1.23. My normal is 1.25, but I found that these will not eject properly out of the gun. They're a little long with that OGAV that this bullet has on it. So that takes care of that. Good quality bullets. Now I'm going to go ahead and put these in the bucket. I like to keep up with these. These are going to all go in the bucket. We're going to put the gun back together, and I'll show you one last thing that I would do before I put this thing in competition. Here's my last step, and it's worth knowing. Instead of putting gun oil in here that's just going to drip and run out and collect dust and be dried up before the day's over, buy some of this right here. This is made by Birchwood Casey. It's called RIG, Universal Gun Grease, and that is good stuff right there. RIG, Universal Gun Grease. You probably can get this on Amazon. If not, I guarantee you Brownells has got it, but it is excellent. eBay will have it. This stuff is excellent, and one tube like this will last you a lifetime. Don't worry about running out. Don't remember how much I gave for it. But it's clear, well, kind of a brownish color, but it's lightweight. It puts you in mind of honey, honey on a cold day. So here's all you got to do. Here's what I do. I get me a little bit out, just a little bit, about that much. I put it in the lid, put it right there in that lid and kind of work it around a little bit. And then when I start putting the gun together, I'm going to turn this around a little bit for me, and you'll be able to see it. But I'm going to turn it around where I can work, what I'm used to doing. Let's get this guy out of the way. We'll work on this slide first. Now, this is the way I do it. Take your lube, get you just a little bit. You can use a Q-tip, but I don't like Q-tips, and I tried it the other day. I don't like them because that cotton will get all over everything. Next thing you know, you've gummed your gun up with cotton, little wads of fuzz. So just get a little bit of that, put that on your rail. I put some on that little rail right there that the disconnector is going to run on. That takes care of that. I put a little bit inside here where my barrel bushing is going to go because it makes it just a little easier to install. The next thing I do, this, you can do this super fast. I put a little bit on the barrel right there on the snout. I put a little bit right there on the hood. because that really runs hard on that pressure of that hood right there. So now the barrel's done, and you can put just a little touch of it right there on that link, because the pin's going to go through there, a lot of friction in that area. So now that's done. See how easy that was? I didn't get it all over me. Didn't have to have a can of oil. So now we're going to go ahead and put the barrel. I'm going to do this in slow motion. Some people do this so fast, they're trying to show off, and I don't need to show off. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'd rather somebody learn something. There's your barrel bushing. You can put this on your fingers and you can work it like you're resizing, doing reloading, resizing brass, and that's what I do. I always use a little bit of lube for that, case lube, and just put a little bit on there like that. And we'll go ahead and install this and swing it all the way one way. That leaves plenty of room for our spring. Okay, so there's our slide. What do we need next? Well, we need something to operate the slide. So here's our spring. We'll put just a little touch of it on there. Boom, that's done. A little touch right there on the back. And we'll slide this. This is a 14-pound variable rate spring. Say, oh my gosh, that's light. And yes, it is light, and man, it makes that gun run so smooth. It's unbelievable how smooth it runs. You'll see that here in a minute. So now we'll take our last bit. I'm gonna get just a little bit more. I've used that up. We'll put this on these rails. Now watch, I'm gonna put it right where it rides on the top of them. See, it rides there. And that ramp where the bullet hits, I usually put just a touch there, make that bullet run a little bit better. And there, I'll put me a little drop on the side of the hammer. It'll ease down in there a little bit. And I make sure those rails, wherever they're gonna contact the other rails, and then right there, there's the tip of the disconnector. It runs pretty hard on those parts when it glides over this, goes in that little indentation. So I like it to be lubricated, and that's it. You don't put any on your firing pin. And then this pin here, this lock pin, this is your slide lock. I put a little coat right there. Watch how easy this is. There's the spin. I just coated that. So when you put that through your drop link, it's gonna make it run nice and buttery smooth. So here we go. We're gonna put this together, and this may not be the best angle for the camera. Okay, now don't misbehave. Put this like this, and I'm going to try to make this where you can see it. And get this half moon. I like to line that up really good. Get that little half moon right there lined up with that square hole. And then I take the barrel and wiggle the barrel like that. And in so doing, I can look through this hole right here and see that drop link. Then I stab it like that, and I can feel it. Once I get there, I can even wiggle the barrel, and I know I'm in for sure. Now watch this. This is important. I'm gonna pull that back out and show you one thing that I do on my guns, custom work. This little square knobby right here that has to go in there and latch inside that gun, those things come from the factory rough as a cob. So I take a very fine flat file, very fine, like a jeweler's file, and I go in and I hit all these little square corners of that slide stop. And I mean, I hit every one of them. I don't get in the part that operates the gun. You don't get in the track. Just get right on the corners. Anything that feels a little rough to your finger, like you're doing working on your fingernails or toenails, your wife's maybe, just nice and smooth where it won't cut your leg open in the night, you know, and just smooth and smooth and smooth. Then I take some 1200 grit sandpaper and I polish that. So why are you doing all that polishing? That way, when you put that in there and you try to get that to go in that plunger, there's a plunger right there with a spring on it. You don't have to make an idiot mark up the side of your slide. I line everything up straight and I push it straight down. Notice how that went straight down in the gun. I didn't have to fight it. See, it's in there all the way. Now you can pull your slide forward till it clicks. The last step is go ahead and put this little cap on, and let's see, get him down in there all the way. This is the part where you try not to hit yourself in the face, and I don't. I never hit myself in the face with one of those, but I could hit the camera in the face. And there's that. Now watch this. This gun is empty, but watch how smooth. Man, you talk about buttery smooth. Now I need you to have some feel-o-vision. So use your imagination. I'm gonna stay way over here so you can see this. Where's my paper towel? My paper towel always likes to try to it thinks it can do a runaway on me. I think it did this time. Well, we've got one right here. We'll make this into a half sheet. There we go. This is my focal point, so I don't lose that. Cap this grease off so I don't get crazy with grease, get dirt in it. We're going to wipe this down just a little bit. Now I want you to feel for this. I don't know if you can do this on video, but I'm going to try to make it where you can feel for it. Here we go. All right? Feel for it. Watch this. Now I'm going to keep this hand steady and watch this. See that? I mean, that thing it's not only buttery smooth. So how's that so light that you can do that with 2 fingers like that? 14-pound recoil spring right in there. Also, another thing that I do, since it's a competition gun, is right inside here, here's my big old pointer. Inside this part right here is a heavy spring. It's a little squatty body, very small diameter, and it's the mainspring. It's called a mainspring housing. You can drive that pin out and get that off and take it apart. Inside that mainspring housing, the standard spring is 23 pounds. And that's for the good old days, back in Army days, 1911, when the hammer was striking a big fat firing pin and you're out in the cold and fighting with all kinds of problems. Well, you're not doing that when you're shooting a target gun. So I take that 23-pound mainspring out and replace that with an 18-pound mainspring, again from Wolf. It's a reduced striker spring, reduced mainspring, and that makes the hammer quite a bit lighter. Now what that means is when I go to cycle the slide, I'm cocking the hammer, you're working against this spring, and you're also cocking the main recoil spring. So the recoil spring going to the rear and the mainspring is getting pushed down. So watch this. So see, I overrode the hammer, it latched, but that thing is, I mean, it's just smooth. It's really easy and smooth. So man, that trigger looks like it's light. Yes, it is. I went into the trigger and I dropped that down to 2.25 pounds. So that trigger is really light, and that helps you when you're doing target work. Now, if you're at an NRA, they may tell you that you've got to have a 3.5 minimum, but that's the beauty of the 1911. There's a leaf spring in here. You can go in there and bend those leaf springs just a little bit. Look it up on YouTube, and you can get your target trigger. You want to always have 1 pound on your take-up so it resets good. But then the next spring after that, the sear spring, you can bend it a little bit. Next thing you know, you got 1 pound there and then 1.25 more for a total of 2 1/4. So 2 1/4, that makes it where I put my sights on something and I begin to pull that trigger, it keeps me from pulling the gun off. That's the whole reason that you use a nice light trigger on a target gun, is because otherwise you'll start aiming, you'll get it just like you think you want it, you'll start to pull the trigger and you will pull that gun off. But if the trigger's nice and crisp and light, you can do everything you want to do, get aiming at it, looking at it good, and you can make a pull and it will break like the proverbial glass rod. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you one thing. We're going to go ahead and load this gun. I want you to hear and see how smooth that's going to load a live round. Okay, this is the way I prefer to load one. This is a good way to do it on 1911. Go ahead and lock your slide to the rear like that, so it's locked open. That way your bullets are never going to hit anything in the slide when you load the gun. I put this in here like this carefully, make sure it latches, I do a double tap, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit this release right here and listen to how smooth this buttery, greased, tuned gun runs with that 14-pound spring. You ready? Here it goes. Man, it's smooth. There goes the thumb safety, put it on like that. So now we've got a loaded gun. Now here's the thing that I want to check. We're going to go ahead and pull the mag out. We know the mag is empty. Keep that finger in a nice safe place. I'm going to pull off the safety and watch that round come out of there smooth. See, it came out smooth. It didn't hang up on anything. That's because it is a 1.23. Like I said, with this particular round, with these at 1.25 or 1.26 like I normally would have run it, it was catching right on the front of the gun right there. They changed this ogive or curvature of that round just a little bit on the berry plated precision bullet. So no big deal, 1.23, it doesn't hurt me on pressure because I'm only using, you can look at any one of my can lids and tell I only use bullseye powder, so I don't write bullseye there. But I put the bullet weight on the top, just like the bullet is physically. 230 grain, that's a round nose 230 grain. It's 4 grains of bullseye powder, and the cartridge overall length is 1.23 inches, and that is very close spec all the time. I double check it. And then it is crimped down to 0.469, 0.4695, just a touch right below 0.470. And that makes sure that this gun will run smooth. It never has any problems. It goes bang every time. Somebody will tell you, well, I don't like the 1911, they're just not that reliable. The reason people have problems with the 1911 is they will take ammo that's the wrong size. They will not tune their extractor that's inside here, or they will put a magazine in that gun that is a substandard magazine. So wrong magazine, extractor tuned wrong. Sometimes they'll put the wrong spring in here, too heavy of a spring, or they'll use the wrong bullet. Any one of those 4 things can make a 1911 where it is not a very reliable gun. This one is very reliable. I've shot hundreds and hundreds of rounds out of it and never have any issues, and I know I'm not going to have any issues out of it. I keep it clean. I keep it lubed up with this nice Rig universal gun grease, and it goes bang every single time. I would bet my life on it. This one I don't carry. I have carried it as an EDC, but it's a little heavy. That's the last thing I want to say. If you're going to have yourself a competition gun, don't be scared of weight. Don't bother with aluminum. Don't bother with a polymer Glock. They don't have any soul anyway. Get you a solid steel gun. This is right at 40 ounces with a mag in it. And that weight is your friend. That is definitely your friend. It will help you control that gun. It will absorb the recoil of that gun when you're shooting it. Don't be scared of a 45. 45 is a low pressure round coming in at 21,000 pounds of pressure max. With these light loads, I'm probably down around 16,000, 17,000 pounds of pressure. And it will dot any target you want to shoot from 7 yards to 25, wherever you put the sights, that's where it's going to put the bullet. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you get a chance to pick yourself up a range officer, one that says RO or range officer on it somewhere, maybe on the wood grip right there, range officer, you know you got one. If you get one used, grab that thing, man. But if you can't, don't sit around and cry because you can't find a range officer, because I've already told you, forged slide, forged frame, forged barrel, that's what you need in a 5-inch gun. The Garrison, built by Springfield, has all that for you. And it comes with a tight barrel bushing. You won't have to change that out. Everything will be good to go. The only thing that you will need is you'll need to go ahead and get you a set of these sights. Bomar makes them, Springfield makes them, several companies make them. Just make sure that it is rated for your dovetail size on a Springfield Armory gun, front and rear. Make sure also that your notch on the rear of it is very narrow. The black is good with the serrations because it doesn't show any glare, and the fiber optic is quickly becoming the standard for being able to see that size, especially if you're like me and you got old eyes. So hope you enjoyed this, and hope that you'll consider the next time you want to go out and do some competition shooting to get yourself a nice 1911 pistol. If you are so inclined, keep in mind that the Garrison can be purchased in 9mm if you want something with a little less recoil and definitely a little less cost as far as your rounds go. Might be worth having the 9mm, so you've got that as an option also. So thank you very much for watching today, and if you would, please tap that subscribe. I also have the super chat. You can hit that and that'll send me $2 so I can buy some coffee and perhaps stay awake to do some more videos. So thanks again for watching, and over and out for now.